What's up, Melanated family? This is your boy Harrison from MelanatedFathers.com and Melanated Fathers TV, bringing you another episode of Melanated Mondays. Now, what is Melanated Mondays? Melanated Mondays is a show that I'm going to bring to you every Monday morning where we talk about something specifically affecting our society as black folks, whether it be our family, our children, our relationship, different things going on in the news. It could be something involving a racist incident. Whatever the case may be, we just try to keep it real and talk about something that we know can benefit our people. Now, also on Melanated Mondays, we also talk about a moment in history, is what I call it, where we discuss something that has taken place in our history that has been a part of shaping where we are today. You know, I definitely think learning as much as you can about the things that have happened in the past does a great job in actually just shaping your perspective to make you as clear as possible on what's going on out here. So we definitely touch on something in history as well. All right, so let's get everything started. So what we're going to do for a moment in history this week, what I want to talk about is the Plantation Police, because, you know, of course, we are tired of seeing all of the police violence as it relates to melanated people in this country, how we're treated by authority. Of course, you know, a lot of these things are coming to a head, and it's just been happening for so long, right? But I wanted to touch on the Plantation Police just to give everybody an idea about how some of this policing started, right? So in the early 1700s, when the southern colonies began to rely more on agriculture as an economic base, the slave trade became even more valuable. And in some colonies, African slaves began to outnumber whites. So basically at that point, vigilante groups were created to keep them under control. Now, at that time, all white men between the ages of 6 and 60 years old were required to enlist and conduct armed patrols every night, right? So what they would do is this would be, you know, harassing slaves by searching their homes, not allowing them to hang out too late, right? So if you look at how things transpire today, it's kind of similar to what they were doing back then as well. So, you know, they understood that they couldn't continue to do the slave patrols because it became this, you know, it looked at really racist, and it was definitely a racist act. So that stopped. But after, you know, slave patrols ended, the newly formed police forces began popping up around the 1800s. You know, detaining suspicious people and protecting communities from unruly citizens. All of these dog whistles is how the police force began to use their power to make sure black and brown people were out of white neighborhoods. You know what I'm saying? So do some history on the Plantation Police. If you go to MelanatedFathers.com, we have a nice article that we wrote about the Plantation Police, and we give you a little bit of history about it. So please go to the website to check that out. If not, you know, just Google Plantation Police and get a little perspective on about, you know, how a lot of this shit came to be. Now, on the topic for today, real quick, what I wanted to discuss, right? When we look at our children today, for all of us out here, I'm talking to all my parents that have kids, you know, young people that they're around, understanding that we live in a different time, right? With the internet, with all of these different forms of entertainment that children have. You know, some kids don't go outside anymore, some kids do. But when you have a child that lets you know they want to play a sport, right? And this happens a lot in our community, in the black community. If you have a child that lets you know they want to play a sport, don't get me wrong, athletics is a great tool you can use to teach your kids about sacrifice, to teach your kids about responsibility. So if your kids are ready to go all in with a particular sport or an activity, it could be, you know, a chess team or a debate team, whatever the case may be. It's important that when they decide to sign up, you be clear with them about what their intentions are. Because like I was saying, sometimes in our community, we think because a child signs up for a sport that now he's finna go to the NFL or now he's about to go to the NBA. I mean, we don't have to make it an all or nothing type of scenario where that becomes almost the only option, the only thing that's being talked about. And I think that could be a negative thing ultimately. So what I recommend, if you have a child that decides they want to play a sport, figure out what's the motivating factor behind why they want to play the sport first, right? Figure out what they want to get out of it. Figure out if it's just something they want to do to have fun, like no pressure at all, just have fun, something to do after school, dad or mom, that's cool, right? But if you have a child that says, okay, whatever this sport is, I'm going to take it serious. I want to go as far as I can possibly go with this. When that happens, I think you put yourself in a really great situation to teach your kids responsibility and sacrifice. Because what I'm getting at, anything they decide that they want in life, it's up to us to show them it's not just about talking about the shit you want. You gotta be responsible with it, and you gotta be willing to sacrifice. So, and I'm speaking for me personally, if a child of mine tells me they want to take something serious, whether it be a sport or any activity, it's up to me to make sure they work hard at it. So after school, when there's free time available, whatever that sport may be, you better make sure they're working at it. You got to make sure they're working on their craft, whatever that may be, right? Because if you have a child that says they want to do something, and you see they're not working hard at it, but they continue to say they want to do it and kind of frame things like they are doing it, it's important that you stop them in their tracks and make sure they understand how much sacrifice is required, how much sometimes they can't play the game they like to play, or they can't be on Netflix as long. They need to go outside and work on whatever the craft that may be, or if it's debating or whatever it may be, they need to go to the library or some part in the house where they can study the same way they would for homework, right? Because I think all too often in our society, like when our kids grow up and be the type of individuals that may not work as hard, or the type of individuals that think they don't have to work for as much, because in today's society, because these children have access to so many different things, they almost think they know everything without the experiences. So they'll get knowledge, and this is what I tell my son a lot. You have to be able to mix the knowledge with the experiences. That makes you a well-rounded person. You can't just be somebody, learning shit on YouTube or Googling things and learning it that way, and don't have any life experiences to mix with that, right? So it's important, man, to use all the tools we have to teach our children different things. And, I'm speaking about sports today because in our community, that's those are large activities that we seem to find ourselves in as far as what our kids participate in. And again, there's nothing wrong with playing sports. There's nothing wrong with athletics at all. It's just best to keep the proper perspective. Sometimes we sign our kid up for a sport or something to do, and we're putting all this pressure on them to be good at it, or there's pressure on them to excel at it, when that may not even be what they're passionate about. They may be passionate about reading, or passionate about becoming a fireman, or something other than sports. We don't have to look to sports to be the only tool to teach our kids things. But if you get a child that tells you they want to commit to it, then that gives you the opportunity to teach these life lessons. See, I've learned that if your child isn't committed to playing the sport, and you're attempting to teach them life lessons and attempting to make them work hard at it, that can build resentment, and it's a waste of time ultimately. So find out what your kid wants to do and back them 100%, but make sure they're 100% committed too. You don't want them to end up being the kind of person that is real wishy-washy when it comes to where their focus lies, right? And again, it's much more difficult for them because of everything they're bombarded with Instagram and all the social media platforms, all the different ways they consume entertainment. We have to understand that if we were kids in this same climate, we will be faced with some of these same things too. We can't put ourselves on an island like during our time, 10, 15, 20 years ago when we were younger, we didn't go through some of the same things. Just it's been heightened now because of electronics and because of the media and how things work now, right? So that's all I want to touch on today, guys. If you have a child in sports, make them work hard at it, or make them decide that this is something that I'm just doing for fun. I just want to work out. I just want to, and keep in mind, right, if your child is getting up in age, if they are looking to play a sport, if they're not willing to commit and compete in that sport, they'll end up not playing anyways. Because once you get old enough, you got to try out for these teams. You got to, you have to make the actual team. So that's going to take talent. That's going to take commitment. But sports isn't the only thing that we can focus on with our children. So if you have a child that says they want to play sports, be clear on what their motivation is so you can help them correctly. You feel me? So that's been another episode of Melanated Mondays. You can find the show on melanatedfathers.com. You can find the show on Melanated Fathers TV on YouTube. YouTube suspended my YouTube account. I'm still trying to get it back. I think I'm going to just create a new one so I can keep everything popping. So please check out the show. Like the video, comment, share, hit that notification bell so you can be notified when the next episode comes out, or when we're just releasing our podcast, or even one of our news stories. I'm out.